So, hello and welcome everybody to Explorations in Translation for Children, which is a webinar series co-organised by the Centre for Book Cultures and Publishing here at the University of Reading in the UK, in partnership with Outside in World, the organisation dedicated to promoting and exploring world literature and children's books in translation. And today we are absolutely delighted to be hearing from the leaders of the project Building a Global Youth Literature Collection 101, sponsored by the Global Literature in Libraries Initiative. Now, before we get started, the usual rules apply. Please, if you don't mind, please just do keep mics and cameras off, but make plenty of use of the chat. It's there for you. And just to let you know that we will be recording this, and we will make the recording available to you all, but just so that you're aware. Okay, the talk will last approximately 40 minutes or so there'll be plenty of opportunities to ask questions afterwards, but also do pop questions and thoughts and reflections into the chat at any point. We will be reading the chat as we go on. I'll introduce our speakers in a minute, but first of all, Patricia, if you could just perhaps introduce the series briefly. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Hello from Athens, Greece. And thank you to Sophie and the Center for Book Cultures and Publishing, our really cherished partners in organizing and offering this really endlessly fruitful webinar series dedicated to our mutual mission to cultivate deeper study of, education on, and advocacy for children's literature and translation. We are now going into our 6th year of holding these webinars. We started during lockdown. It's pretty amazing. And we're really grateful to our regular audience who is here and to those of you who are joining us for the first time. Welcome. Welcome to this vibrant community hub, out of which has grown many, many beautiful connections, new projects, PhDs even. So really, truly welcome. I'm co-introducing as a longtime member of Outside in World, as Sophie said, the organization dedicated to exploring, promoting, and celebrating children's books in translation. I'll pop the Outside in website in the chat in a moment. So we don't just want more translated books published. We want the books to reach readers. And that's why we are thrilled to have our wonderful colleagues from the Global Literature and Libraries Initiative here to share their project and website, which is about connecting books to readers through building global, inclusive collections that truly expand and enrich young people's lives and their worlds. Thank you, Annette, David, and Mark, for your heartful, impactful work and for sharing your wisdom and practice with us today. And now back to Sophie, who will introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, actually, that was a wonderful introduction, Patricia. Thank you. And because the speakers are going to really talk to you about who they are and what they do, I'll just let you know that we're going to be hearing from Dr. Annette Goldsmith, Dr. Mark Aronson, and David Jacobson. And I'm just now going to hand over to them. Thank you very much.
I seem to be still muted, am I?
No, we can hear you. I'm just going to...
Okay, so hi, I'm Mark Aronson, and wanted to tell you a little bit about me and my connections with Annette and David and how we came about to build or start building the Global Youth Literature Collection 101. So I, by background, am a historian, and I write nonfiction books for young people. My feeling is we should get rid of the word nonfiction, which defines something by what it isn't, and we should instead call these books curiosity books because they are the product of the author's curiosity designed to inspire the reader's curiosity. Some of the books I've written, so I've been at Rutgers since 2010. Rutgers is the State University of New Jersey, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I teach there. But let me tell you about my books and how that links to what we're all talking about. I've thought of doing a collection of books called We've Always Been Connected. And I think my feeling is that there's a big mistake in how we teach history because we teach national histories. which was never true. We've always been connected by environment, by disease, by invention, by ideas, by mobility of people, by economics. And any kind of real history has to look past and among and between borders to show connection, both positive and negative. And so those are the books that I and my wife and I try to write. We're working on some more of those now. At Rutgers, though, we can go to the next slide. I've been very fortunate because I was able to create one of, I believe, two, if that, courses at any library, master's level library program in America that focuses on international youth literature. So all the librarians who are being trained in America to work with young people are not being deliberately trained in books from other countries, in other languages, in translation. And so I have, since 2014, had the opportunity to create that course at Rutgers. And we do it in spring because students have the option to come with me to Bologna every year, and the students really expands who they are and what they get to see by going there. We've also had the chance to build our own collection of international and youth literature at our library at Rutgers, New Brunswick, both for our students and faculty on campus, but also to be available to libraries throughout the state so that we can keep feeding these books to communities so they can get the chance to use them. I use many guest teachers in those courses, people who are experts about the languages and cultures and books from different countries. And indeed, both David and Annette have been really wonderful guest teachers every spring when I've taught the course. And so one time I was talking with Annette about the course, and I was saying my students are really getting a lot out of this, and they want to go out into their libraries and bring international youth literature to their communities, but they don't really know how to get started. And I said, you know, I wish we had a starter kit that would allow a motivated librarian who wants to bring international literature, youth literature to her community, but doesn't know where to begin. And Annette said, let's build it. So we got a grant from the American Library Association. We got some funding to allow my students to help us work with locating and evaluating and gathering materials. And we built the starter kit that now David and Annette will describe to you in more detail, so that a person who, you know, broadly thinks this is a good idea, but does not have a background, has a mechanism to find the books, to think about how to utilize the books, how to share and program with the books, and how to connect with other organizations throughout the world that can make a librarian an informed person to bring these just marvelous and needed works to her community. So that's my introduction, and handing it over to you, David. I can't.
Hi, David, you're on mute.
How about that? Is that better?
Yes,
okay.
And we can see the slides. That's perfect.
Okay, and I am going back to the slide. Give me one play from current slide. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. I'm David Jacobson. I come with a background in journalism, book publishing, and I have worked as a Japanese translator and interpreter. I'm also the author of Are You an Echo? The Lost Poetry of Misuzu Kaneko,
and a picture book about a beloved Japanese children's poet who was hardly known abroad. I am incidentally working on a second follow-up volume to that right now. But Are You an Echo was my initiation into the children's book world. As it turns out, a few months after the release of this book, there was a conference of the US Board on Books for Young People, where I live in Seattle. It proved to be a pivotal experience for me. Not only was it the place where I met co-presenter Annette Goldsmith and others in the children's literature world, but it also suggested to me my next book project, which is an adult-level biography of Jelle Lepman, the founder of USBBY's parent, the International Board on Books for Young People, and also the founder of the International Youth Library in Munich. That's primarily what I'm working on now. In publishing Are You an Echo, I was shocked to learn how few children's books from Japan were translated into English. So ahead of that USBBY conference, I decided to conduct an informal survey of translations from China, Japan, and Korea to get a quantitative understanding of just what was available from East Asia. That required the help of other specialists in East Asian languages, such as translator Helen Wang, librarian Minji Chen of Princeton, and others. Not only did we quantify just how few translations there actually were, but also we've determined how few translators and how few publishers actually worked on them. For instance, I learned that 60% of the translations of Chinese children's books released between 2005 and 2017 came from just 3 publishers. This demonstrated the fact that the number of publishers and translators who devote any kind of effort to international children's literature is tiny. But it also suggested a way of approaching the problem of how to find international children's books, which is one of the big challenges for global youth literature. Namely, it is useful to identify the small number of publishers working in the field, as well as the small number of translators responsible, as a key to identifying the specific translations available. And that is one of the strategies that we used in creating globalyouthlit.org, and that we recommend to you as you are looking for new books to introduce to children, your patrons, and others. To give you an example from Japan, which of course I am most familiar, there are about a half dozen translators who compete to translate the small number of Japanese children's books that make it into English each year. They include Emily Balistrieri, David Boyd, Kathy Hirano, Ginny Tapley Takemori, and Avery Fisher Udagawa. Knowing their names will help you identify the vast majority of children's books translated from Japan. Similarly, if you can identify the key translators of children's literatures from, say, Chinese or Hindi or Portuguese, you can probably identify and find the most important examples of children's literature from each of those languages. There are exceptions, of course, but these are the names that we endeavor to present in the translators section of our website. Putting the list of translators and publishing, therefore, together just meant identifying a list of key people and key firms. In the case of translators, which I was responsible for, I limited my search to those who could claim at least 2 published translations of children's books in a particular language. Here you see a list of some of the publishers who released the most translations of children's literature. This list was compiled from World Kidlit's 2025 list, as well as individual publishers' sites. As you can see, these 6 publishers plan to release some 32 titles in 2025. Like in my earlier survey, you find that a few players do most of the work. In this case, the top two publishers, Enchanted Lion and Levine Querido, are alone responsible for 56% of the total. Now, let me hand the baton to Annette Goldsmith, who will walk you through the website itself. Annette?
Thank you, David. So I'm Annette Goldsmith. I'm a longtime online instructor of children's literature and librarianship, most recently at Kent State. My background is in public libraries, and I started as a children's librarian in Toronto, where I'm from. I'm now working as a Judaica librarian, where happily I still get to work with kids. My dissertation explored decision-making by US editors in publishing children's book translations from other countries. And I really wanted to understand the process with the goal of seeing more translations published. And as Patricia mentioned, used. So when I discovered GLLI, the Global Literature in Libraries Initiative, which is all about raising the profile of translations in libraries, it felt like the activist follow-up to my academic work. I joined the GLLI board early on, as did Mark and David. In them, I found kindred spirits. I'd also like to give a shout out to GLLI's new executive director, Vashalis Kaba, who is in the audience today. So I've been promoting translations for a long time through my teaching, library practice, book award committee work, and co-editing Reading the World's Stories, the International Youth Literature Bibliography sponsored by USBBY, which you see on the slide. My current project is about calls to action in international picture books with an environmental focus, and I'll be presenting that next month in Boston at the USBBY conference. So here we are at our website. Now, Mark told you how this project got started, and David has described how we highlight publishers and especially translators, which I think is a unique contribution. For this tour of the site, I'm going to give you a bit more background and then demonstrate ways you can both browse and search. And David will be clicking us through the site pages. globalyouthlit.org, or its more formal name, Building a Global Youth Literature Collection 101, was funded by an American Library Association Carnegie Whitney grant and sponsored by GLLI. The purpose is to help American public and school librarians get started on adding international books, especially translations, to their collections. The overall purpose, too, is one that we all share in having children become global citizens, in seeing the importance of books from other languages, and really being able to engage with them through translation. The US orientation was a requirement of the grant, but we think there is plenty to interest an international audience too, of course, which is why we're here today. Our initial funding has ended and we're considering our next steps. While I'm showing you the site now, please think about how you might use it on your own, with your students, with children. If you would like to collaborate with us in any way, if there is a funding source you would recommend we approach, we are keen to learn from you during the session. So please feel free to leave comments and questions in the chat, and we will be addressing them. So let's start this tour. There are two parts to the site: the starter kit, which you see on the top of the screen, which contains the book lists, and the hub resource section on the bottom of the screen. And the hub aggregates all kinds of resources that you would otherwise find very scattered across the web. And both the starter kit and hub entries have annotations that try to give you extra insight into the book or the resource. I'll show you different ways of accessing the content, but you can always just use that menu bar, which is right across the top. And there are drop-down menus that you can use to navigate anywhere on the site. And you can also leave us feedback. And yes, David's pointing to that feedback tab. So let's step briefly over to how to use this site by clicking on the menu bar. And this is where you can get more detail about the scope of the project. You'll also find information here on how to search. And David's just scrolling down to that. And how to save your hits. And I'll be showing you how to do that. And for those in the US, some tips on ordering books. For this first phase of the project, we decided to start with translations from countries from which it is most difficult for US librarians to find information and acquire translations. So those are Latin America in both Spanish and Portuguese, the Middle East and North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, India, China and Taiwan, Japan, and Korea. So that's why on this site you currently won't see books from Western European countries such as France and Germany, because their languages are more frequently translated and their books are more widely available in the US. And later we would like to expand to include more European countries, though. The starter kit consists of picture books and middle grade books. Some of the older middle grade books are also tagged as young adult. We plan to continue to build out the site by adding YA book lists, but for now, we direct you to the GLLI Translated YA Book Prize for 7 years worth of shortlists. And the link is there in the middle of the screen, but we are also going to show you how to find it on the site. And you go to the hub and prizes, and there it is. So the starter kit books, and we're just going to click on the starter kit drop-down menu. There we go. Are predominantly contemporary with a few classics. So we wanted to have books that kids are reading now. There are 110 books in the geographical book list, and you can see the countries are all and regions are listed there. And there are usually 10 to 20 titles per list. So a little about browsing. We're just going to go back to the home page. We design this site for exploration. For example, you can start with the home page and just choose one of the book covers on the starter kit carousel that you see moving along. So David is going to pick one. Okay, and that's Yours Sincerely, Giraffe. And you can see it takes you to the country book list. Here we go. And if you scroll up to the top, this is the Japan book list. You can see that there is a detail view and a cover view. It's actually a little hard to see, but that's what it says. We are in the detail view, which is the default, and we'll show you what the cover view looks like. Okay, so you can also look at the books this way. Or you can use the drop-down starter kit menu to browse by format. And you see in sort of lavender near the bottom, it says picture books, middle grade, and YA. And those are right now the middle grade books, which are also tagged as YA. At the bottom of that drop-down menu, it says programming tips. And of course, that's something we had to have for this site because we want people to be able to use the books. And these are some tips that members of our team put together. If you have tips to add, we would love to hear them. And we'd be happy to include them. So another way you can browse is to start from the Starter Kit homepage, and that's a map. And you can either choose by looking at the map itself or scrolling down. There are country and region labels on the bottom, and you can access the books that way too. So we also have a current interest section, and that's near the top of the Starter Kit menu. We're going to go to it. And this is to help librarians serve their immigrant communities. Right now, we're highlighting resources for Ukraine and Israel and Palestine. If there is a part of the world that you think we should add, please let us know. And if you can volunteer any expertise regarding content for something that we would be adding, we'd be very grateful. And so I would like to just show you one of my personal favorites from the Starter Kit. So we're going to go to the Japan list. And scroll down. We have first picture books, and then middle grade, and we're going to The Secret of the Blue Glass. Here we are, which has the universal appeal of miniature people, think of the borrowers, in a very specific cultural context, rural Japan during World War II. This is a younger YA title, and it was shortlisted for the GLLI Translated YA Book Prize. And I'll also show you that this is a typical entry. You have the bibliographic information. You have the annotation. It might have a link or two. And along the bottom, you have tags. And there are quite a few tags on the site. So that's a brief overview of the Starter Kit. And now we're going to go back to the home page and check out the other part of the site, which is the hub. And you can just go there and click on it. Or you could go to the hub drop-down menu, but you'll get there either way. So we're just going to scroll down a little bit so you can see we have 9 sections here. And as I said earlier, we really tried to aggregate material from all over the place in this one place. Okay, and we're going to choose blogs and projects from this list and check out the blog Gathering Books. And we're going to open it. Here's the entry. And then we're going to go right to the blog. So this is a really fascinating blog. It's based in the UAE, but also with input from Singapore, the Philippines, and the US. It's managed by Myra Garces Baxal, who recently became a board member of GLLI. I found lots of really great recommendations here, and I think you would enjoy looking at it too, if it's one that you don't know. And so let's also take a moment to look at the translator section, since I know it will be of particular interest to you all. So you go to the hub and translators, and this is the list. And we're just going to scroll down a little bit so you can see each brief biographical entry in the translator section begins with the translator's name and the source language or languages of translation. And it's by no means comprehensive, but again, it isn't meant to be. This site is all about getting people started. So you can see that it's easy, it's pretty easy to browse and both the starter kit and the hub. And I just want to pause to see if there are any questions that people have now, and we can take them. And we will have more time at the end for questions too. And the next thing we'll be doing is talking about searching. So if you have a searching question, maybe wait until after we've done that. So Mark, are there any questions from chat that we should address?
Patricia had a good question about how, if a translator wished to be added to the list, how would they go about that process?
David, do you want to answer that one?
It's easy. Just get in touch with us. As we said, the basis for our choice was those who have at least two translations in that, two children's translations in that particular language. And that's what we use as criteria. We also want to look at your background and get, hopefully, if there are clips of reviews or articles that you've written or interviews, we would want to include those as well, which is what we do for all of the translators, for instance. Oh, there's no clip here, but others there are.
Then we got a second question, which was, how often is the site updated? And the answer to that is that our grant has run out. So right now, we're not doing what we did in initially creating it, which was really a full-fledged development. You know, we're certainly open to suggestions for books that should be added or features that should be added. I think Annette touched on the fact that we had hoped or would hope to extend this to include more countries, to include books in original languages, to include more YA, etc. So there's certainly areas of expansion that we have in mind. It's just right now there is no funding for an overall expansion. But if you have specific material that you think belongs on the site, please write to us and suggest it. We would certainly, our goal is for this to be a beginning that grows.
Are there other questions right now?
There's one from Emma, Annette. So Emma, do you want to come on mic and ask it?
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. I was just wondering, I know you mentioned that there'd been a US focus, there is a US focus partially as a result of the grant requirements, but I'm wondering if all the books on the website were sort of definitely in print and available in the US at the time that they were included, or if there's historical information, or whether there's also now some things that were published in other English-speaking countries but maybe aren't available in the US.
They were all available in the US at the time that we put it together. So that's like as of a year ago.
Cool.
And that was one of our requirements because we really wanted to make sure that the librarians we considered our audience would be able to find all these wonderful books we were telling them about. So yes.
Thank you.
I mean, certainly if someone wanted to add extensions to indicate which are available in other Anglophone countries, since these are in English, you know, we'd be happy to include that information too. So we want to be as broadly available, you know, as broadly useful as possible.
Yeah, it's Patricia again, and I just want to add what really strikes me. I love the clarity of the website. It seems really accessible, and I also feel this is so valuable. You know, in addition to librarians, to anybody who's curating a collection of any form, you know, of children's books in translation. You know, individuals or any place that could use this start, because I often get asked, you know, where do we start? We have like 2 books, but what else is there? And so it's like, I'll send you there. So it's got wider application as well. I'm sure that's clear, but I think it's worth naming. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of questions. Oh, Helen Wang asks, is it standalone or linked to other sites? Well, in the hub, we give access to other sites, and it is linked to the GLLI site, but not otherwise. Certainly we would like to. Again, this all just began from Annette saying, sure, let's build it, Mickey Rooney movies, in the old day, let's put on a show. And
Excuse
so
me. Hello,
sorry.
excuse me. Hello. Hello. Hello, I have a
Someone's,
question. Hello.
I'm not quite sure who's speaking now.
Hello. Hello. Am I
Hi,
audible?
do you have a question? Or perhaps you
Yes,
could put it
I
in
have
the
a
chat.
question. I have a question. Hello, I have a question.
Okay, do you
So
want to
can I
put your
ask my
question
question?
quickly?
Can I ask my question?
Yes,
Yes.
if
I
you could.
just want to know when a book is translated, when a book is getting translated version, okay, what is the sort of the difficulties in between the original text and the translated version? Because many of the translated text that is found in India, okay, that are already get published after having been published in translation studies. So what is the reason and what is the impact of the translated book and the original format? Would you please tell me, ma'am?
I don't think there's a given answer. I think it varies by the book, by the publisher. There is not a global answer to that question. It depends on the language, the publisher, the book, the author, the illustrator. There are too many variables.
No, I'm not talking about like that way. Okay, I just want to know that when a book is getting published in translated form, does it really delete the main creed, the concept of the text of the original text when a book is getting published? Because the published version is not absolutely coming from the authors itself. So when an author is writing something, it is absolutely pure, absolutely originality it's maintaining. But when a book is getting published in translated form, I think the taste, the purity, the concept, the content is getting bit shattered. Am I audible? So I just want to know
Yeah, I think this is a translation question.
so what do
And I
you want to
wonder,
me? Yes, no. I just want to know from Mark Aronson, okay, because he's telling me, okay, there is no difficulties in understanding. It is absolutely depends on the publishers and the understanding and the language itself. Okay, do you think that it only depend on the publisher?
No, this is a huge question. You could get a doctorate in translation studies assessing this question because it has so many variables. There is not everyone, and you guys are translators, I'm not, but everyone speaks of translation as an art form, and it's an art form that engages with the text. But yes, sure, let's have David, what do you think?
Well, I think that translation is in large part based on the original text, but is the work of the translator. And that's a limitation of our being able to consume and to read books from other countries. I spoke to, for instance, a primary translator of Murakami Haruki, J. Rubin, excuse me. And he told me that, frankly, when anybody reads Murakami, 90% of the words that he or she is reading are my words, not Murakami's. But that is a price we pay for being able to get access. And that's just, I think, part of the equation. And there's nothing we can do about it. Because if we can't read the original, translation is the next best thing.
Someone also asked, are the books all translated? I think perhaps someone should re-ask that question. I think it was, are the books all translations? The books are all currently books that are available in English. There can be books that were written in English.
We do have some books which were originally written in English from countries where English is also a local language, like India, South Africa. I think we have a couple that are in English. Our focus was, though, to provide translations. I think this is probably a good time to continue with the tour. We'll have more time at the end for questions if I can just get back to it, as I would like to tell you about searching. So let's do a sample search. And to do that, we go to the top right on that menu bar where you see the search box. And there are two ways to search. There's a keyword search, the first box, and the second is a tag search. And we really suggest that you use them both. There are no Boolean operators like and or for the keyword search. It's just a simple search. So say you are interested in books that feature children with disabilities, and we're going to start with the keyword search. If you type in the full word disabilities and click on the search box, you get 3 hits. But if you type in just the first part of the word, DISAB, and click, you are going, oh, I've never seen that before. Here we go. That was odd. You will get 4. So the idea is if you truncate the word, you might get more hits. And so let's look at those 4 hits. So you get 2 from the hub, which from the prizes and translator section, and you have 2 from the book list, from the starter kit. So let's start with the prizes entry. IBI's Outstanding Books for Young Peoples with Disabilities book list. And we're going to click through to the page here, which you do just by typing on the, by clicking on the title of the entry. And if you scroll down the IBI page, you will find the 2025 annotated book list. There it is, which features 40 titles for children and teens. And these books are collected by IBI sections from all over the world. It includes accessible books as well as books with portrayals of disability. So if you scroll up a little bit, you'll also see it says archives, and that's where you can find all the earlier catalogs too. So you can download PDFs of the current catalog and the earlier ones. So really, if you're interested in representations of disability internationally, this hit is a real treasure trove. We're going to go back to the hits page and go to the translators entry for Lawrence Schimmel, who, as many of you know, is a very prolific translator. And you can see it's a typical entry. There's a brief biographical piece. And then in this case, there's also a link to an interview that Betsy Bird did with Lawrence. So in this, this search, the keyword search, caught that 2 of Lawrence's translations from Spanish to English have been chosen for that same IBI award we were just looking at. And in the interview with Betsy Bird, there's a discussion of two more books, one fiction and the other nonfiction, that center children with disabilities. Now, I think most children's librarians would not automatically think of following the work of a translator. David already talked about how important that is. And here's another reason why it might be a good idea. You can actually follow for what translators are interested in translating too. So let's go back to the hits page. And the other two hits are from the starter kit book list. Let's go to the India one. And the book is Thukpa for All. And this is told from the perspective of a child who's blind. And so the hit takes you to the India book list, and you have to scroll down, as David has just done, to find the book. Now, some of the annotations have little treats embedded for you. And in this one, you can watch a read aloud by the author. And at the bottom of the entry, you can add your book to a list. It's called My List on the site, where you can keep track of books that interest you. And we're going to do that. We clicked, and then you get an acknowledgement. So back to the hits page. And our other book in the Middle East and North Africa list is called In the Meadow of Fantasies, and it's a picture book from Iran. And so this list has quite a few countries on it, so we're scrolling down to find our book. And it is a dreamlike equine adventure of a girl with a physical disability. There it is, In the Meadow of Fantasies. And we're going to add that to our list as well. So click on the little plus sign, and you get the acknowledgement. And that's the keyword search. So we're going to go back to the search page and do a tag search. And so you can click on the box for tag search and see the full list of tags. And this is really useful if you want to get a quick idea of what's in the starter kit. Sorry, I just had to plug in my computer or I was going to lose power. Okay. And just need a moment to find my place. Okay. So you can also now type in the tag search box, disabilities. And as you start typing, the tag children and disabilities will come up, with disabilities will appear. And you click on that, search, and you get 3 hits. Now the hits that you get are to the book list. Because what it's doing is finding all the tags within a given book list. So it's not one book per block that you see. So we have already seen the book from India and the book from the Middle East and North Africa. So we're going to click on the China and Taiwan one. And I'm not quite sure why the other 2 books are listed here, but we do get the ones that we want to look at. So they're all here. And the first one is Bronze and Sunflower, a very affecting middle grade novel set in the countryside during the Cultural Revolution. It's about 2 good friends who, through circumstance, become brother and sister, and the brother does not speak. The book was translated by Helen Wang, who, of course, is in the audience. Hello. And she won the Marsh Award for this translation. We're going to add it to the list. And the other book here is My Beijing, a graphic novel that celebrates the relationship between a resourceful grandfather and his granddaughter who has a physical disability. And this was a Batchelder Honor book. Click, and we've added it to the list as well. So now what we're going to do is go up to My List. It's at the top right of that menu bar, right beside the search bar. Click on it. And you're going to see all the books that we added. And in order to print the list, go down to the bottom left where there's a print icon. And you can see what the list will look like. When you print it, you've got all the bibliographical information. So if you're using this for acquisitions, it's really handy. Now, so you can print whatever you save as a PDF. It's just important to know that you have to do that before you leave the site because it will not be saved. And that's pretty much the site so far. And we're going to just briefly return to the slides. And David's going to bring those up. And go right down to a thank you page because, you know, we certainly didn't do this just on our own. There are an awful lot of people to thank. And I do want to mention our designer, Maddie Burton, who I think did a spectacular job of creating something open and inviting and accessible. And of course, our funders and, you know, a lot of other people, including quite a few translators, and maybe some of them are in the room too. So just to go to the last slide, you will see our emails. So as you know, we're still open to what we're going to do next. In addition to adding YA, we'd like to expand the starter kit to include more European countries, plus selected books in world languages, as Mark mentioned. And we look forward to your thoughts on all of this. And after the webinar, please feel free to email any of us, or you can leave a note on that feedback form on the site's menu bar that you saw. So thanks for listening, and we'll just go right over to more questions, I hope.
We're getting very nice encomia, but certainly open to questions and suggestions. There is a place on the site for you guys, anybody to post thoughts. We're very eager either for ideas of what to add or anything, things that you take issue with, things that we, someone says they have questions. Love to know more about how librarians have been using your site.
We would too.
I see someone is planning an international youth lit course and study abroad in Korea. That sounds terrific, Sarah, and happy to share my experiences in doing that and taking students to Bologna. Perhaps we can coordinate a bit. I think the more ways we make connection to International Youth Lit available, the better. More avenues people have.
Yes, I was wondering, since David is such a, it's Patricia, I know he's super interested in data. Sophie's really good question about knowing he's, like Deborah from Outside In World, really big on book data. About learning how these resources are used. I think Sophie's question was really interesting in terms of how we reach people who need this resource. We know you have a good network there in the US, and through this webinar here, we're expanding the reach. What else can we do to get the word around? And librarians in the house, yeah, how do we expand awareness of this incredible resource?
I mean,
put it in the feedback in the site. Yeah.
Well, my first thought is that anybody who works with kids, that is a teacher, a librarian, whatever it is, should know about this, because why should kids in any place in the world only see materials that are about that world or from that world? So really, I think any school of education, school of librarianship, school of that deals with young people, and we're going pretty much through most of the age ranges, should be made aware that, surprise, surprise, there are kids elsewhere in another country who are exposed to other materials, and that you could be expanded. You know, I mean, we all know in the US, I guess, we're very familiar with Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop's windows, mirrors, and sliding doors imagery. But as many have noticed, that tends to be many more mirrors than anything else. And we're trying to expand the windows.
One of our explicit strategies was to take advantage of the student, not take advantage, but use the students in Mark's class, so that not only would they have an opportunity to investigate and investigate children's literature in different countries and languages, but they would also be able to take that as they move out into their own libraries and their own professions to use in the future. To that end, we think using this as a teaching tool is a great way to move it from the web to real life.
And that actually has happened. Some of the students who you saw listed, who are now librarians, are doing very active international youth events. New Jersey is an extremely diverse state. So you have communities where there are multiple languages and multiple cultures, but then you work with those communities, and my students are doing exactly that.
And, you know, we hope that you all will tell people about this resource too. I mean, right there, that will help a lot.
And also, thank you for mentioning, I think, Charisma Lee, buy the books, right? You know, don't just tour the site, y'all, go and get these books, because that's going to create the critical mass to get, you know, more books translated. But as I said at the beginning, we just want to get the ones that are already translated out to the people. So yeah, thanks for all these amazing comments.
That's interesting. Helen said, could I try to get a feature in the library journal or school library journal about this? That's a good idea. I would certainly will pitch that. And I saw Sarah just mentioned adding it to your syllabi. You know, we also did appear one year at the American Library Association conference. We're talking about doing that again. You know, I think what we're doing, we're trying to get through to others who will spread the word. Like, we're not just going to individuals, but to people who will have then a broader reach, which is all of you.
And another, oh, sorry, I just wanted to say that the session we did at ALA was a USBBY session. So, you know, we kind of started by, I guess, preaching to the choir a little bit. You know, people who we know are already interested in this, but we do want to broaden that. So really, all children's librarians, all instructors of children's librarians should know about it.
And lastly, we did view this site not as a single source of information on global youth literature, but as a directory where people could go and could be fanned out to other locations. And to the extent that these other locations, such as Outside in World or the Book Center at Reading, could bring them back, link to us that will therefore enable people to go back and forth in both directions.
I must apologize, but I need to dash off. But I hope to be in touch with many of you directly, personally, and to meet all of you in many places in the world soon. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for all these suggestions. And I know, Sophie, we have to be mindful of time, but also there was a good question about flagging ebooks, because our librarian Fiona Byers asked, presumably we have a lack of space on our bookshelves. Are the titles that are available as ebooks flagged in any particular way?
Annette, do you know, my sense is that we have not done that.
Right. We wanted to focus on print books, and we talked about ebooks, but I think for the kind of limited resources we had, we wanted to focus on one thing and do it well. And we didn't feel that we could do ebooks as well, like in addition to.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. And I'm writing around now. Let's get more funding.
One other thing to add to that is we do recognize that the United States is only one part of what is increasingly sort of a global translation system, where translators and publishers are located all across the globe, and that the products of their work are not just available in their home countries, but across borders because of ebooks and because of ebook delivery. And though we could not attempt to incorporate all of that into this particular website, we think this is a small piece of a much larger puzzle.
Yes, we really do want people to see it as a starting point from which you can fan out. The starter kit is, obviously that it's called a starter kit, but the hub we felt was somewhere where you could take a deep dive as a novice, but also as somebody who is already, steeped in this field, because there were lots of things that I didn't know about. I've been working on this for a long time that we ended up having in the hub. So it's so it does serve aficionados well as novices, I think. Oh, I want to mention also, because I didn't in the tour, that the number of languages that books are translated from that we have in the starter kit is 12, and authors and illustrators come from 22 different countries.
I think just a few more minutes. Yeah, Sophia, I'll let you take over here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just enjoying reading through the chat and seeing everyone's enthusiastic responses to this resource. And thank you so much. It was just really, really wonderful to be taken on that tour through the website and see just how rich this resource is. I hadn't realized that. And I learned so much. And it was lovely to hear your reflections on how that worked as well. So thank you ever so much.